Well, there's definitely nothing normal about this movie Normal. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of Normal. It is directed by Ben Wheatley. Okay, so leave it to Ben Wheatley and Derek Kolstad to bring over, of course, Bob Odenkirk, who's the most unlikely of super action stars since Liam Neeson, and put him in a scenario where he basically is an interim sheriff. He's taken over this town of Normal, which seems very weird and kind of strange because of some of the things that are happening. Imagine if there is a robbery and that causes a lot of chaos and the kind of surprising nature of what Normal represents and what is the underlying service that is very dark, and the revelations that happen lead into, of course, the Yakuza and lead to the town trying to take down the people that robbed the bank, and then, of course, the sheriff played by Bob Odenkirk, who plays Ulysses, and it becomes a straight-up action film that only Ben Wheatley can do when it comes to his style and substance, and using Derek Kolstad as the kind of creator of John Wick, and basically it is a action film with Ben Wheatley's sensibilities in a lot of respects. If you've ever seen a Ben Wheatley film like Free Fire, you know what you're getting yourself into. So think John Wick, think Nobody, but with Ben Wheatley. So this idea of Bob Odenkirk becoming like Liam Neeson, where he can do dramatic and then he can do great action, is something that was never expected. Bob Odenkirk, who's a comedian, for doing Mr. Show. Of course, he started Nobody. He was, of course, Saul Goodman. And it's just an interesting career that Bob Odenkirk has been on. And then you add in that he worked with Derek Kolstad on, of course, Nobody. And, of course, you bring Ben Wheatley in, who worked on Free Fire and High Rise. And, of course, Meg 2, which wasn't very good, but, action sensibilities. And you bring in some, lower tier actors. But you also bring in Lena, Headey. And you bring in, of course, Henry Winkler to star in a small role as the sheriff or the mayor. And you mix it into this kind of concept of like a town that holds a dark secret and it, involves the Yakuza. You have the possibilities of being a very entertaining movie. But Ben Wheatley, like I said, is a very interesting director on the simple fact that he just creates very odd movies, to be fairly honest, or movies that aren't conventional. He's a lot like David Lowery when it comes to like what he's representing, where he just has his own style and sensibilities. It's just the way he is. So here we have a movie, once again, Bob Odenkirk has a past. He's an action superstar in this world he lives in now as an actor. And the question truly remains, is this movie at least worth watching? Similar to Nobody, similar to Derek Kolstad's John Wick films, I found this movie very enjoyable and entertaining, but it's not necessarily a good movie. It's not on the level of John Wick. It's in the vein of like a Nobody, where the style and the substance is more interesting than the story itself, because the story starts out fine. He's a sheriff who, Ulysses, the Bob Odenkirk, is a character who's brought in to be an interim sheriff, which is just a weird story arc in its own right. And then the whole town holds this secret, and it just becomes a much more chaotic film as it moves along. It has a turning point when these two characters come in and try to rob the bank, and just the town and the way it acts and the way it holds that secret. And then, like I said, you're bringing the Yakuza, and you're doing all these things. It's just it starts to go from one level and then completely turns into a 180, where it goes into this other insane 50,000 miles an hour type of story, where it just becomes a battle and a character. It becomes less about the character, it becomes more about survival. And then on top of that, you have a bunch of weird characters who are goofy and they feel like small town individuals, but on top of everything, it's just they're like one of the sheriffs, one of the deputies is just kind of an idiot, and then another deputy is just kind of, there's not really any substance. The sheriff that was killed, he has a daughter who's involved in this movie, and once again you have Henry Winkler, who comes in this movie as just kind of the mayor. It takes so many weird turns and so many odd turns that this movie might not be for everyone, to be fairly honest, because of just how strange it gets and how just kind of off the rails and very Nobody and very John Wick it becomes, where the action is more visceral and more gory and violent than it is interesting, I guess you could say. It's more trying to smack you in the face and see if you react to what is happening on the screen. And there's many moments where you go, oh my god, I can't believe they just did that. And that's what I come to expect from a Derek Kolstad type of movie. But the movie, on a storytelling level, it takes turns, it takes ideas, it becomes so bonkers and out there that it becomes truly unbelievable as it moves along. The main crux of the movie, as you're watching it, you realize what's happening is so outlandish and so insane, but it's trying to throw about a message about how small towns are being kind of eviscerated by corporate culture and the state of the economy and stuff like that. So there is messaging there, but it's just a very weird movie, to be fairly honest. It once again shows that Bob Odenkirk is a very versatile actor. He can do drama, he can do action, and he can also be a leading man with a lot of charisma. And he's also kind of playing the same type of action star in this movie, kind of similar to what Liam Neeson does in every action movie he does, where it's pretty much the same thing over and over and over. And once again, like you said, you have Lena, Headey in this movie, and you have a couple other actors that are pretty decently known, and they don't really add too much. It's more just kind of small parts and bit parts that kind of will play out later on in the film. And once again, there's a lot of Deus Ex Machina in this movie. It leads to a conclusion that is completely off the rails, similar to like Enemy of the State in a lot of respects. And I still had fun with it. I mean, as much as I talk about how just weird it is, I was enjoying myself watching this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's only an hour and 35 minutes long, so you're not going to be completely insulted by what you're seeing. But I think it's just not going to be for everyone. It's just not that type of movie. It's a movie similar to like Shoot 'em Up or, like I said, Free Fire, where it has its own style and it has its own kind of rhythm that sometimes it just doesn't necessarily click with the storytelling elements. It doesn't necessarily work, but the stuff that's there is just fun enough and entertaining enough that you can at least enjoy it for what it's worth. So overall, it's an enjoyable action movie. It's very violent, very gory, there's a lot of language, but I think it's a movie that, shows an interesting side to Bob Odenkirk, who's just become a really interesting actor, to be fairly honest. So that's my take on, of course, Normal, which is not a normal film. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that's my take. I do appreciate you watching. In the comments below, what do you think of John Wick? What do you think of Nobody? Are you looking forward to seeing Normal? It was the mystery movie of the week, so if you saw it, let me know what you think. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.